let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac.
All right, let me ask you all a question. If you were to guess, how would you think that Democrats have spent their Super Bowl Sunday? Because if you're going to guess crying about Donald Trump and seething about Donald Trump, you would be absolutely correct. That is indeed what Democrats have spent their entire day doing, and they are just such happy, definitely not miserable people, are they? Now, in the last video, we talked about how they were trying to get the crowd at the Super Bowl in New Orleans to boo Trump as he made his historic surprise appearance at the Super Bowl. Again, first U.S. president ever to attend that game. And that spectacularly failed. You can go watch the previous video for a full chronicle of that. But there's a lot more to talk about because as it turns out, the liberal tears, for lack of a better word, it's overused, but that's exactly what it is, right? That's all we're seeing right now. Liberal tears about everything continued this Super Bowl Sunday. And when I say about everything, I literally mean about everything. Any angle, any facet of the Super Bowl that they could find to attack Donald Trump on or blame Donald Trump on, they 100% and absolutely did. For example, we have right here, right? More seething about Trump showing up to the Super Bowl as he, stole the spotlight. He was very popular in the building. We, for instance, here have Brian Stelter of CNN. He says this: think about it. A year ago, you could go days without seeing or thinking about Joe Biden. Now you're lucky if you can go hours without thinking about President Trump. He's inescapable, and that's just how he likes it. Today, the Super Bowl is also the Trump Bowl. To which I say, absolutely true, Brian Stelter. In fact, we should rename it. Yes, the Trump Bowl, okay? We have the Gulf of America and we have the Trump Bowl. He goes on here to say, oh, by the way, can I just point out the reason you would go days without seeing or thinking about Joe Biden is because he literally was not the president. Okay, he was president in name only. Yes. Turns out when you actually have someone running the country, people are going to notice and see that he's running the country, just saying. But going on here, okay, Brian Stelter continues. White House aides have indicated the president's ubiquity is partly a strategy to impress Republican voters and disorient Democrat opponents. It also satiates his own ego. Oh my gosh, what an egotistical man. He showed up to the Super Bowl as the president. How dare he do this? Okay. So hopefully, guys, you're basically getting the idea of the type of things that Democrats were talking about over this Super Bowl Sunday. But like I said, it's all encompassing. Like they literally cried about everything. So we're going to walk you through all of that today, whether it's the NFL removing the remove racism signs or end racism. Remember those? They blame Trump for that. They blame Trump for inflation, despite the fact that he's only been in office for about a month. They even blame Trump for terrorist attacks like the ones in New Orleans. Yeah, we can't even make this up. I told you it is all encompassing. Anything they can attack him on, they're doing. It's deranged. It's kind of comical in some ways, I guess. But first, do us a big favor, guys. Make sure you're subscribed, okay? Hit that subscribe button down below. According to the stats, 70% of you watching are not subscribed. It's the best way to ensure we can keep doing these videos, support the work, and let's begin the push to 1 million subscribers. And moving on here, okay, guys, I promise we're just getting started. Okay, so let's start here. Okay, even more CNN crying related to Brian Stelter. Now we have a former colleague of his. As you may have heard, you may have seen this, the NFL at the eve of this Super Bowl decided to finally remove the virtue signaling end racism end zone signs that they had for a very long time. You probably have seen these if you watched any NFL game, right? End racism, end racism. Well, now they finally got rid of them because in many ways, like the wokeness in our culture is growing unpopular and, people are just getting kind of sick of it. But take a listen here as Abby Phillips of CNN blames Trump for this decision. Okay. In a bad way, by the way, because if it's true that Trump is responsible for this in a good way, then I would support. But take a listen.
When tens of millions of fans tune into the Super Bowl, they will not see this, the end racism slogan and the back of the end zone. Instead, one end zone will say choose love and the other says it takes all of us. The league explains that the change is about capturing the moment of time in the country and nodding to the turbulent past few weeks of fires, plane crashes, and tragedy. They don't mention, though, the VIP who is going to be attending the big game, and that is Donald Trump. Trump has made erasing every trace of DEI initiatives, a focal point of his first few weeks in office.
So apparently, according to CNN, Trump is the reason the NFL took the end racism signs out of the end zone. And again, I just want to say, if that's really true, if it was because of the pressure from Trump, then thank you and bravo, another victory for Trump. I doubt that's kind of the full story, but that's, of course, how CNN is framing it. Of course, those signs were ridiculous to begin with. It's like, okay, racism is magically going to go away because you have virtue signaling paint in the end of the end zone that says, end racism. Now racism has dropped to zero because the NFL said end racism. Although if I were the NFL, I don't know, satirically, I guess, but I'd probably just embrace that. I'd say, why are you taking away end racism from the end zone? Well, because we ended racism. Racism is officially no more. It doesn't exist. You know, I don't know, but you know, there you have, okay, step one. So the reason why the virtue signaling paint is out of the end zone is because of Trump, and that's Trump's fault. Now let's move on to talking about some Democrat politicians because they made their own Super Bowl related attacks against Trump. We got to start here by talking about Elizabeth Warren, which, by the way, on the front of Elizabeth Warren, I just want to point out really quickly, this is on the same week where she got exposed for being a massive liar. Because she said, a reporter, as you can hear right here, check out my website. I don't take contributions from big pharma executives. I don't take any corporate PAC money. And then it was revealed by the lovely ex-community notes that actually, according to Open Secrets, Elizabeth Warren was not just taking money from big pharma, like she literally does, even though she said she doesn't take money from big pharma. Apparently, she was the #2 recipient, second highest recipient from pharmaceuticals and health products in the 2019 to 2020 election cycle when she ran for president. So, of course, that is who we're dealing with, and a completely disingenuous person, simply just a bold-faced liar. And keep that in mind, because now their guys are bringing back the talking point that, oh, Trump hasn't ended inflation and fixed the economy magically within less than a month of being in office. How dare he? The economy is entirely Trump's fault. Take a listen. This is their Super Bowl message from the Democrats.
Super Bowl Sunday. And here's a reminder that Donald Trump has done pretty much nothing to lower your grocery costs. Remember, during Donald Trump's campaign, he repeatedly promised to lower food prices immediately. He said on day one. But here we are, way past day one, and the cost of groceries has only gone up. Chicken wings cost over 7% more than they did a year ago. Egg prices have risen 60%, from $2.51 a dozen to over $4 a dozen. Look, instead of lowering costs for your family, Trump's been focused on cutting funding for hot meals for seniors and giving Elon Musk access to the system that makes sure that your grandparents get their Social Security checks on time. Donald Trump needs to buckle down and use the tools he has to lower grocery prices and deliver on his promises.
Oh no, Trump has only been in office for less than a month and he hasn't magically fixed the economy overnight. This is proof he's a failed president. Okay, thank you for that. First of all, it was, during when Biden was president, it was that inflation was transitory. Inflation was not real. The economy was doing amazing. But magically, now that Trump has inherited Joe Biden's economy, suddenly it's not such a good economy. It's just so silly on so many different levels. But I also want to point out, notice how the only two products she mentioned there in terms of grocery prices going up were chicken products, right? She talked about the price of chicken meat and eggs. Okay, so Elizabeth Warren, I know you want to blame Trump for everything. But could the fact that chicken-related products are going up in price have anything to do with the fact that there's a bird flu epidemic going on right now that started under the Biden administration? Oh, and on top of that, the Biden administration also murdered about 100 million chickens. They literally killed a bunch of chickens to try to stop this bird flu epidemic. Or did that just not happen and everything is Trump's fault? Well, we know the answer. Everything is Trump's fault, according to the Democrats.
You mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up. because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that in the days ahead.
But yeah, apparently it is Trump's fault that he has not magically somehow fixed a very bad economy within the span of a month, because that's how economics works, right? You magically recover from bad economies within weeks, days even. It definitely does not take time. You can magically just reproduce 100 million chickens overnight, right? They'll just spawn basically like Minecraft or something. I have no idea. Okay, but you know, with that said though, moving on here, Elizabeth Warren is far from the only Democrat politician who has engaged in this type of rhetoric, because we also have to talk about the Super Bowl message of Chuck Schumer. Now, knowing Chuck Schumer, let's all hope that this goes a lot better than the last time where he tried to talk about barbecues and show how relatable and a normal person he was to the American people. Because, of course, who can forget this moment right here when he was throwing the cheese onto a raw hamburger, apparently thinking that this is how you cook a burger. But guys, of course, never forget, this guy knows all about like your life and the Super Bowl Sunday and Memorial Day barbecues and everything else. But nonetheless, here was Chuck Schumer's similar Super Bowl message about inflation.
The Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, says Super Bowl parties this year, the game on Fox, of course, could be more expensive this year.
Let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados, both from Mexico.
Yeah, update, that literally did not happen because the tariffs on Mexico never went into effect. But nonetheless, thank you for that, Chuck Schumer, known grill master and amazing connoisseur of regular people, Chuck Schumer. But moving on here. So far, let's keep a running track record. Everything bad about Trump during the Super Bowl. Firstly, how dare he show up? He stole the spotlight. It's all about his own ego. That was from Brian Stelter. He's also responsible apparently for removing the end racism signs from the NFL end zones, which again, thank you, President Trump, if that's really true. He's responsible for the price of eggs and chicken because it's apparently Trump who single-handedly started the bird flu epidemic. But let's move on here now to, this is from Democrat Congresswoman Julie Johnson and who is this right here? Nellie Paul. They did this little performative video stunt outside of the site of the New Orleans terrorist attack that happened last month, where they're apparently attacking Trump over it, claiming that Trump is going to defund the FBI and therefore terrorist attacks like this are going to keep happening. Yeah, we're not even making this up again. When I said they used the Super Bowl to attack Trump over everything, literally everything, including terrorist attacks, take a listen right here.
Hey everyone, it's Congresswoman Julie Johnson from Dallas.
And Nellie Paul from the state of New Jersey.
And we're both on the Homeland Security Committee, and we're here in New Orleans today in advance of the Super Bowl to take stock of the terrorist attack that occurred here on Bourbon Street. And I'm very concerned about what's happening with our FBI. We cannot have a diminished FBI amongst the heightened threat of domestic terrorism here in this country.
At a time when what's behind us shows the need for experience. certainly capable individuals that will really make a difference in terms of an investigation. Today is a sad moment and a sad day for all of us, and as Americans, we need to protect our country.
Okay, so yeah, there they go again with this same old argument that, hey, if Trump cuts down on the size and roots out a lot of incompetent and useless people within our federal government, that is going to endanger our safety. That's going to endanger our national security. Of course, this is the same exact thing they said during the plane crash in DC last month. They said, well, Trump wants to cut down on FAA. He wants to fire a lot of people who are incompetent in there. He wants to root out DEI hiring. And how can you do that when we just had the worst plane crash in the United States of America since 2009? Now they're saying the same thing about this terrorist attack, which also was an incompetent security failure, right? That guy was able to just drive around the so-called police barricade. And, once again, we had an FBI that ignored all warning signs potentially. And we've seen that story time and time again here. Well, if you cut down on the FBI, then things like that are going to happen. To which I say, in all of those cases, FAA, FBI, foreign policy, whatever, CIA, national security, it doesn't matter. Those things are already happening. Did you guys even hear yourself? You're standing outside the site of the New Orleans terrorist attack that happened when Biden was still president, that happened when, the current leadership of the New Orleans police, of the FBI, etc., were still there, or I should say the prior leadership at the very least. And it still happened. So explain that to me, right? Especially in the case of, let's say, the DC plane crash, which they equally tried to make a big deal out of. I mean, that is just a disaster. That was a question of how do you even allow that to happen? Well, is that incident happening not literal proof that Trump is right? Yeah, we do have incompetent people in the FAA and in our, air traffic system as a whole. Okay, yeah, we should actually fire a lot of people and replace them with new ones. Why? Because that was allowed to happen, right? You do not repeatedly get security failures and incompetence failures relating to a lot of bureaucracies in our country over and over again that keep resulting in tragedies like this. You can't see that happen over and over again and somehow say, no, we should not fire anyone. No, we should not get rid of anyone. No, actually, something like this happening. Yes, the rising threat, potentially, as they say, and it may be true, of domestic terrorism, unfortunately, in America, that is proof that we do need to root out a lot of incompetence, malice, and subversive actors potentially within the FBI. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a big issue. It's a big issue that's been happening anyway. See, that's the thing about the fear mongering is they say, oh, if we cut down on this bureaucracy, then more disasters like this will happen. Well, that's a hypothetical, but disasters like this are already happening. So there's proof that the FBI is not keeping you safe, the FAA is not keeping you safe, etc. No, I don't know what they think this talking point is supposed to achieve. But yeah, Trump is right. There is mass incompetence in the federal government. It needs to be addressed, or you're going to see these issues keep happening. So that's why his agenda vindicated yet again. But anyways, there you have it. So, terrorist attacks are his fault. The price of chicken and the bird flu is his fault. The NFL getting rid of virtue signaling everything is his fault. Okay. Happy Super Bowl Sunday to you, Democrats. And also congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are better than the Eagles. Okay. With that said, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.